Have you seen Star Wars?
It's now been 40 years since The Empire Strikes Back was released in theaters, and now in this very unique time that we live in, the film has reached #1 in the box office again. Theaters are finally opening up again, and a lot of studios have been putting classic movies back into the theaters. Movies like Indiana Jones, Lord of the Rings, and even Black Panther have returned to the big screen. But this past weekend, Empire beat out all the competition. According to Deadline, it has made an estimated $175,000 across 438 locations that showed it in the US, with the final weekend takings being between $400,000 and $500,000. According to Box Office Mojo, Empire first reached the #1 spot in 1980 when it was first released and stayed there for 2 months straight, before the remastered 1997 edition won 2 weeks at the top. If you guys remember that, it was the special editions that Lucas made in 1997 with A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this movie does over the next 2 weeks, because if it stays #1 in the box office despite the extremely unique situation in the world, I think it's a good sign to show the state of Star Wars, at least a movie like Empire Strikes Back, and the significance it has still 40 years later. Now, I know some critics might say that 500,000 over the weekend is not a lot. It's not too impressive in this day and age where movies can make tens of millions over one weekend. But the fact that out of all the movies that are in theaters this past weekend, Empire beat all of them to the #1 spot not only shows the greatness of this movie, but it also shows that maybe Star Wars isn't dead if it's still the box office #1 spot. For someone like me, and many people who were born in the late or even mid-90s, a lot of us have never had the opportunity to watch an original trilogy film in theaters, much less the unaltered version of the film. I hope they keep Empire in theaters and expand it to more, because I think it would be a great time for Star Wars fans to use this time during a small Star Wars dry season to go see one of the best from the franchise. So if you have no plans this weekend, my friends, go see Empire Strikes Back in theaters if you're willing to deal with the modern day regulations of going into public. If there's a theater near me that's playing it, I'll go watch it and leave a review for a channel. I'll be honest, I've been looking all over the place to find somewhere to watch Empire, and I can't find anything. The closest thing I found to something that I would truly enjoy was the 4-hour cut, the extended edition of Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and I've seen that so many times. Sitting 4 hours in a theater, just doesn't sound ideal. But if I can go see Empire, if I could go see A New Hope or even Return of the Jedi in theaters, I promise you I would. I just need to find a place to go do it out here in Orlando. I think it's a great time for fans to show their support for Star Wars by going to see the one that is still considered to be the best film, and it will send a message to someone like Disney and Lucasfilm that films like Empire Strikes Back are what many of us still think is truly Star Wars at its core. So I gotta ask you guys, will you be going to see Empire Strikes Back in theaters this weekend? And what do you think of it returning to the #1 spot for the 3rd time in history? I don't know how many films have been able to pull off this feat of being the #1 box office in 3 times over the course of 40 years. I feel like that's a rarity, and I feel like it's very special for Star Wars. And it does show that Star Wars still resonates with the audience, even 40 years later. So go do your due diligence, my friends. If you're a Star Wars fan, I think you should go enjoy your time in theaters and actually go see Star Wars and get some of what that feeling would be like in 1980, seeing Empire Strikes Back in an actual big movie theater with an audience who probably has seen it by this point. But just imagine that you're back in 1980, seeing it for the first time, and hearing Vader confess to Luke that he actually is his father. I think it's a very significant movie, not only for our culture, but for our Star Wars fandom. So tell me your thoughts below. If you've seen Empire Strikes Back in theaters, tell me what it was like. Are you planning on going to see it? And if you do, give me your review on it below, because I'd love to hear your guys' thought on actually going to see an original trilogy film in theaters, because I feel like it's something that is kind of a lost art for a lot of Star Wars fans, because we don't get that opportunity much anymore, except when like an episodic film comes out and they do those big marathons. So go see Empire Strikes Back in theaters, my friends. Enjoy it, because I will try to do the same. Comment your thoughts below, and if you like this video, please like it and subscribe, because it does help out the channel. I'm Star Wars Only. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time, and may the Force be with you always.